I'm starting to wonder if hustle culture is trying to make a comeback, or did it ever really go away? Now, a lot of us have unsubscribed to it, but is it trying to come back? Let's talk about it. Hey there, I'm Kathleen. Welcome to my channel. I'm a writer, founder, and storyteller. And if you want to check out some of my writing, visit my Substack where you can join the newsletter or become a member. And over there, I talk about building a life and work that's aligned with your values, especially rebuilding in your 30s through identity shifts and transitions with more ease and less chaos. So check out the link in the description if you want to check out my Substack. Now, today's video, this is something that hustle culture is something that, it's nothing new, but there have been some questions about, are people defaulting back to hustle mode? Is hustle culture making a comeback? So let's talk about it. Well, first things first, something that I'm learning is that and realizing is that people have different definitions for what it means to hustle or, what hustle culture means to them. Let me know in the comments when you think hustle culture, what comes to mind or how do you define hustle culture? For me, hustle culture it's not just working hard. I don't think hustling and working hard are synonymous. They don't mean the same thing because you can work hard or do hard work and not hustle. I think hustle culture is the idea that no matter what's going on, no matter what you're dealing with personally, no matter what, you just push through. You push through, what your body might be telling you. You push through tiredness or fatigue or, you push through illness or not feeling well. If you have personal stuff going on, you compartmentalize, you put that on the back burner and you push through no matter what. That's what hustle culture means to me. I know for some people, hustle culture or hustling simply means, working multiple jobs or having different ways of making ends meet. Now, I can see how that is considered like hustling, like you do what you got to do. But I also think that because of this economy, and I'm not saying that I agree, but I'm just saying because of this economy, like some people do have to do what they have to do. I don't necessarily know if that's what hustle culture is about. On my Substack a few weeks ago, I actually asked if ease culture could ever become mainstream because I see ease culture kind of as the like antidote to hustle culture. Because even though, like, at the end of the day, capitalism, it is what it is, I do think that there are ways that we can, like, exist within capitalism in a capitalist society, but not be in it, if that makes sense. Like, exist within it, but not subscribe to the, I guess, principles or culture of capitalism because I think hustle culture is pretty much because of capitalism. If it weren't for that, hustle culture wouldn't even be a thing. And so in asking that question, can ease culture ever become mainstream? It got me wondering and asking, well, how did hustle culture become like the norm? How did it become something that's expected? And when you unsubscribe from it, it for some people it can seem strange or weird or like, who does that? How did hustle culture become so widely accepted? I think to figure out when did hustle culture become like so socially acceptable, it depends on who you ask. It depends on which generation people are from. It really depends on who you ask. I think generally speaking, some of the older generations, like the silent generation, baby boomers, I do think they did use hustle and hard work synonymously. And for those generations, there were actual tangible rewards for hustling. And there was a lot of pride in that. And I mean, we still see it today, but there was a lot of pride in that. I think Gen X, generally speaking, a lot of Gen X people grew up around the can't stop, won't stop, I'll sleep when I'm dead mentality. I think for a lot of millennials like me, a lot of us entered the workforce during a financial crisis, the housing crisis, during very challenging financial economic times. And so we kind of just did what we have to do. Like I remember after I graduated from college, my student loans, your student loans are in its grace period. And when they came out of its grace period, I was like, well, I don't want to keep deferring it. So I'm just going to find any job that I can so that I can at least start paying towards my loans. And I was working a job that paid a little bit above minimum wage. And I was working alongside people who had master's degrees and couldn't find work in their fields or, couldn't find other better paying jobs. And, pretty much all of us were just, taking whatever job we could to pay the bills. And that's what we had to do. You had to just figure it out. And I used to drive to work every morning, blasting Rick Ross every day. I'm hustling every morning. That's what I would be doing. And I was looking for jobs and interviewing and all these things and doing all the things that they tell us to do. And like there, for me at that time, and for a lot of us, there was no other option but to adopt a hustle mindset, hustle culture mentality. Now, for Gen Z, I think that they're generally speaking, they haven't really opted into hustle culture, which I'm very proud of Gen Z for that. A lot of them are like, nah, we're not doing that because they've seen from older generations that there's really no true benefit to hustle culture. Well, let me not say true benefit because there are some people and some industries where, hustling is kind of the expectation. So I'm not going to say that there's absolutely no benefit, but there's a lot, hustle culture costs you more than what it's worth. And I think that a lot of Gen Z, they see that and they're like, never opting into that. Now, I will say that I first unsubscribed from hustle culture after I was laid off from a job. And after I was laid off, it was at the start of the pandemic. I was the last to know that I was laid off. Everybody else knew. That's when I unsubscribed because I was like, so wait, I could lose a job or be out of a job because of a decision that somebody else made or because somebody else isn't doing their part or their job or miss not diagnose the forecast they unpredicted or their predictions for future business or whatever else, whatever decisions went into that, they missed the mark. When I realized that, I was like, well, hustle for what? For why? And from there in traditional jobs, I'm like, I'm not hustling. Now, I do think that in a lot of US workplaces, when you don't subscribe to hustle culture, it confuses people because it's like, what do you mean you're not hustling? I remember working a job where one of the senior leaders told our team, if if you want to be promoted, you have to hustle. And I was like, I'm never going to be promoted here. And I was okay with that because like you first have to hustle before you're doing the job and then you get the job. And now you're expected to maintain that level of productivity that you were doing before you were promoted. Like it's a trap. But what's interesting is that that's when I first unsubscribed from hustle culture. It kind of like, made me the alien, the odd one out in some of these workplaces, probably put a target on my back. I don't know. But then what was interesting, what surprised me is when I started building my own business and my brand, I defaulted back to hustle mode. And it was like 5 years after I had first unsubscribed from hustle mode. So it's really easy to default back. It's like a reset, factory reset. In my work, I used to say things in my own business. I used to say, like, well, I can work late tonight, get up early to finish it, or, well, I can't slow down because if I slow down, then I'll fall behind, or, well, if I'm not working, I'm not making money, all these things. And it took some time for me to realize that you don't have to hustle even in your own business. Now, something I will say is that I probably work more in my business than in a traditional 9 to 5. But when I say more, I'm not necessarily talking about hours. It's working for myself, being a solopreneur, it uses up like my entire both sides of my brain. So I'm using more of my cognitive function, more decision making, more things that when I worked for someone else, I deferred decisions to official leaders, senior leaders. I deferred a lot of things. I was like, that's not within my in my scope of work. So in my own business, I do work more, but not necessarily more hours. I actually work more efficiently because I can, create the pace and all that. And most modern workplaces actually operate very inefficient. And I've been in workplaces where I'm like, oh, let's make this more efficient. And I've realized that a lot of people don't actually want to work. They don't want to be more efficient because it it supports the hustle culture mentality of like being very busy, even though you can be busy and not productive. You can perform busyness, which I think that happens a lot in a lot of workplaces. But again, I also think it really depends on how you define hustle culture or hustle and whether or not you do subscribe to it. I've seen some people say that they're opting out of hustle culture and closing their business and going into a 9 to 5. I don't think just because you're an entrepreneur means that you're subscribing into hustle culture. I think you can subscribe to hustle culture as an entrepreneur. You can also subscribe to hustle culture as a traditional 9 to 5 employee. Like I said, my definition of hustle culture is the overall mindset, mentality of just pushing through no matter what. The point I'm making is that I've unsubscribed from hustle culture. I don't know if it's coming back, like the idea of it. So let me know, what do you think? Do you think it's coming back? Have you unsubscribed? What does it mean to you? Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.